All right, guys, welcome back to Everything College Football Podcast. Today, me and Nick here are going to preview and prediction for the New Orleans Bowl between Georgia Southern and Sam Houston State. 6-point favorites are the Eagles, 48.5 the total, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on December 19th, Thursday night from New Orleans in the Caesars Superdome. And things started with the Georgia Southern offense. This has been a relatively good unit this year, putting up 28 points per game. It's certainly been a bit of a bumpy approach in the passing attack, though. J.C. French, the starting quarterback, 16 touchdowns, 7 picks, throwing about 218 yards per game. Efficiency's at 66%. The effectiveness from this passing attack, though, isn't all that impressive. Only one game of over 200 yards over the last 4. They did go 3-1 in those games, though. But throughout the year, this passing attack only has one game of 300-plus yards, and that was in Week 1 against Boise State, which was a shootout. A lot of points scored in that one, playing from behind. So this passing attack, Nick, they've been good, but they certainly don't threaten you in the toughest of ways. 3 receivers of 500-plus yards. These are good guys. Dalton Cobb and Derwin Burgess are the best ones. And they have Josh Dallas with a team-high 5 touchdowns. This is a very good Sam Houston State defense. There's a lot of guys in the portal. I think the expectation, though, is a lot of these guys will play. We'll highlight some of those players here in a moment. What do you think of this passing attack, Nick? The inconsistencies against a very good defense might not play out very well if they are indeed at full strength.
It certainly could hurt this Georgia Southern offense if this Sam Houston defense is playing at full strength. This is an offense that's having an okay season. Nothing super crazy, like you said. 240 yards per game through the air is 52nd in the nation. They have 28.3 points per game, which is tied for 67th in the nation. So not, incredible numbers by any metric. French has been solid at times for this team. Just an average starter in college. 66% comp rate, 2,600 yards passing, 16 touchdowns, 7 picks. Are numbers that are very average, in my opinion, for a group of 5 quarterback. Don't really blow you away. Nothing too special there. Burgess is a really good wide receiver for this team. The 600 yards is solid, 3 touchdowns. Josh Dallas has been really good, 568 and 5 scores for him. While Dalton Cobb's been solid as well, 555 and 4 scores for him. So decent numbers there. Their tight end Tyler Fromm gets involved as well with 252 and 2 scores. This is a passing attack that's not going to really dominate you by any stretch of the imagination. And overall, this is an offense that's just a middle-of-the-road unit that gets the job done week in, week out, but doesn't really do anything flashy in terms of passing or rushing the ball. Just a middle-of-the-road offense is hoping their defense will have a good day as well and hoping that they can win what should be a competitive game against the Sam Houston team.
This is a defense that has been very good against the pass, 174 yards per game allowed, 57% comp rate. 12 touchdowns, only 13 picks allowed. They have played some pretty weak offenses down the stretch here, but, for the most part this year, this has been a very sound defense. Again, some of these guys are in the portal. It does include starting safety Caleb Weaver, Isaiah Cash, and then David Fisher at corner, so a couple of guys in the secondary. Again, I think they're going to play. Cash already said that he is going to play, so already getting some guys coming back for this game. It's great news for them. This defense has been really good. The numbers on screen are pretty impressive. Only 13.2 points per game allowed over the last 5. Their offense isn't a world beater unit by any means, so this is a defense that has to go out and play tough in some of these closely contested games. 22 takeaways as well. The biggest thing for Georgia Southern, can they run the ball? Jalen White's been a really good running back, 654 yards, 12 touchdowns. Offensive line, though, they're 90th in tackles for loss allowed. It's not the greatest of units. Dominic Boyd at left tackle is having a good year in pass pro. Pichon Wembley at left guard's also been a really good pass protector. It's still a pretty average unit over right tackle. Bryson Broadway's a big liability for them. Sam Houston State, this is a defense that has 25 sacks on the year. Chris Murray and Bryson Hayes, their top 2 defenders there. Both those guys are in the portal as well. This is still a very good defense, Nick. I think most of these guys will end up playing, and I think Georgia Southern, their offense, might be in some trouble here because this unit has just not been all that great throughout the year. Certainly not, hitting the expectations we kind of figured they probably would, considering how much they aired it out last year and how much success they had. They haven't had 400 yards over the last 4 games. They're still winning these contests, but they did lose to a bad Troy team, Nick, where they only had 246 yards of offense. And this is a good team they're playing here that has a good defense that is going to travel. So where's the edge ultimately lie for you?
Certainly expecting a defensive contest here, which I think is why you could potentially consider Sam Houston State having that advantage. I think, if you want to win this game for Georgia Southern, you got to run the ball effectively. Jalen White's been good for his team, 650 yards rushing, 4.4 yards per attempt, and 12 touchdowns for him. He's been really good, while O.J. Arnold has been a solid number 2 back, 316, 5 yards per attempt, and 4 scores for him. J.C. French has run the ball 101 times, though has not been super effective, 205 yards rushing and a score for him. The defense for Sam Houston has some talented pieces. You alluded to those 3 secondary pieces. Assuming they're all going to play, they're really talented players. Weaver leads the team in tackles at 86 total tackles, including 62 of those are solo tackles, 3 tackles for loss, 4 picks, 6 pass breakups. Really good numbers there. He leads the team in a lot of regards. Isaiah Cash has been good for this team with the 57 total tackles and 2 interceptions, while David Fisher has 33 total tackles, 2 interceptions, which one of them he took to the house for a pick 6. Calvin Gaither is a really solid linebacker of 85 total tackles for this team. Has a pick, 8 tackles for loss. Trey Field, another good linebacker, with 72 total tackles, 6 tackles for loss. While Chris Murray in the D-line, 34 total tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 5.5 sacks. Rounds out a pretty solid Sam Houston defense that is really, stingy, giving up only 20 points per game, 19th in the nation with that number there. Very good defense that this Bearcats team has.
Good news for GSU. No one is transferring on their offense. They'll be at full capacity. Run defense is about to give up about 141 yards per game for Sam Houston State, so it's not that bad of a unit. They've only given up 200 plus twice on the year against UCF and Jacksonville State, so no shame there. Moving to the other side of the ball, Sam Houston State's offense, they've been pretty abysmal over the last 5, 14.6 points per game, 96 nationally, 355 yards per contest, 23 points per game. It's not that great of a unit, but they can certainly be productive, and they have some good players. Lead running back Jay Ducker looks like he is not going to play. He's currently in the portal again for the 4th time in his career. DJ McKinney did not play in the last game against Liberty. The freshman running back will be first in line. He's had a pretty good year if he does indeed playing. If he doesn't, I'm really not sure who's up next. John Gentry is also in the portal, again for him too. So I'm not really sure what they would turn to here, but Hunter Watson's a very capable runner, second on the team with 623 and 7 scores. Since he took over at quarterback, he's been respectable. 11 touchdowns through the air, 8 picks. It's not the greatest of passing attacks. Their top receiver, Simeon Evans, did announce he will play despite being in the portal. He leads the team with almost 500 yards. Behind him, Quavez Humphreys, 20 yards per catch and 4 touchdowns. So they have a big play weapon there. A couple of different guys have, sporadic numbers. So it's not the deepest of offenses in terms of skill or production. I think they have a great matchup against a pretty bad GSU run defense, Nick. I watched the App State game. They were pretty bad. Gave up 4.5 yards per carry there. Higher than that against Coastal Carolina. They did a pretty solid job against Troy. Throughout the year, though, it's not been a great defense. Week 1 against Boise, they gave up almost 407 touchdowns to Gianti. That's what he does. But, that just goes to show you that's horrible numbers. And, they've given up 200 plus on occasion throughout the year. Old Dominion and Marshall really had their number running the ball. They had a comeback against Marshall to win that game, but it's one that they should have lost because the run defense was bad. The only guy they're missing is Isaac Walker. He left the team, about a month ago. Other than that, guys like Marquise Watson-Trent are playing. Davion Rhodes as well. Deshaun Davis. Pretty impressive D-line and, front 7 that they bring to the table. Competitive one at that. Who has the advantage here, Nick? Because it's a bad run defense against a team that might not have any running backs.
All right, it's really interesting to look at how this rushing attack is going to be for Sam Houston because they're missing a lot of players. If they don't have Ducker, if they don't have McKinney, that's certainly a big loss, and you wonder where those snaps are going to come from on the ground. This is an effective rushing unit. The passing, it's, again, average, 60% comp rate, 1,600 yards passing, 11 touchdowns, 8 picks from Watson. Again, serviceable for what level they play at, but nothing that's going to really blow you away. If Ducker doesn't play, I am worried about this. I think that it could be concerning. You're going to see a lot of QB runs from Watson, the 623, 4.1, and 7 scores for him, and they're going to have to try and find a way to use their big play weapons through the air with Evans and Humphreys, especially Humphreys going to have to target him 362 yards, receiving 20.1 yards per grab and 4 scores. Michael Phoenix has been okay for this team as well with 15.8 yards per grab and 3 scores in his limited catches. Got to find, big play ability. I think if you can't run the ball, like I believe Sam Houston will not be able to run the ball during this game. They're really, solid at throughout the season. 190 yards per game is 29th in the nation. Their passing offense 164 yards per game, 123rd in the nation. So seriously, a low number there, a bottom number in the FBS. Concerning if you're not going to be able to run the ball effectively. I don't know how they're going to look throwing the ball in this matchup. As for this Georgia Southern defense, Marquise Watson-Trent, I think is a good linebacker, a good leader for this team. 110 total tackles, 8 tackles for loss for him, 1.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles. He has almost double the next highest tackle on the team, Devon Gilmore, who has 57 total tackles, 4 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. Justin Myers and Chance Gamble have been two good secondary pieces with Mark Stampley. Gamble and Stampley each have 7 pass breakups, solid numbers there, while they each have 3 interceptions as well. Good numbers for those guys. Tracy Hill has been solid as well, 33 total tackles and 2 picks, including one he took for a touchdown there. So I do give this edge to Georgia Southern defense here, because I just don't know what this offense is going to look like for Sam Houston here. This is a unit that's not a great Georgia Southern defense, but I think they're okay at times. Yes, they're not great in pass defense, but they're not going to be Sam Houston's probably not going to have a lot of success throwing the ball, considering they're not a very effective passing attack. It's kind of like which one of the bad units there is going to have the better day, and right now I'm going to take the Georgia Southern defense to have the better day, but it's really an interesting battle between those units that are not very good.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point you make. That's what makes bowl season so fascinating. It's tail to tape of the bads and who's going to have the most players available and whatnot. Georgia Southern will certainly clear that bar. 123rd in pass defense, like you said, they give a lot of big plays. Sam Houston State doesn't really generate many big plays, but again, Humphreys is a big play weapon of over 20 yards per catch for him. Not much of a high-volume passing attack. Statistically, this run defense for GSU is worse than it was last year, and I think the Boise performance, I think, uplifts that a little bit, but it still happened, right? We can't just overlook what happened in that one. And last year in the bowl game, they played a 4th-string running back and a 3rd-string quarterback, and they got gashed on the road, Nick. So I think that's a big concern there. We don't want to forget about that performance where these guys haven't played all year, came off the street basically, and they put on a clinic against the Eagles defense. So I don't want to overlook anything.
You certainly don't want to overlook that. I think, the Boise game is a bit of an outlier, obviously, because Janty is just that incredible of a player, and he was, fresh for the year. They really let him run wild to see what he could look like this year. So I think it's a bit of an outlier, but you make a good point about last year's bowl performance where it was absolutely abysmal against the run. And, who was going to step up for Sam Houston State? But it could be some guy that we've not really seen a whole lot this year. I'm looking further down the depth chart. Past McKinney that could get the go at running back. Could they have a really strong day on the ground? I think it's certainly possible. If McKinney goes, that could be a huge get for Sam Houston. He could have a dominant day on the ground. He could put up a ton of numbers.
Now, looking at the final thoughts, the prediction, and the team comparisons, running back I currently have the Bearcats because that was when we assuming Ducker would play. If he doesn't, then obviously the Eagles will get the edge there. Georgia Southern at quarterback and receiver. Offensive line, I'm going to call them about even. Both are, kind of average, not all that great. I think all the defensive edges, though, go to the Bearcats. That implies everyone plays, and it appears that's going to be the picture for them. Nick, I want to get your thoughts on that. Do you think it's that clear of an advantage on defense, even if a couple of the starters are out?
Yeah, I think it is a clear advantage. This is a good defense from Sam Houston. It's playing solid football this year with the way that even if you're missing 1 or 2 stars, I think they have enough guys further down the depth chart. 20 points per game. You can't overlook that. Only allowing 13.2 points per game in the last 5 games. A really strong run defense, really good with the takeaways. That's a big key. If they get a lot of takeaways in this game, it could really skew it in their favor. The 22 over the year leads that conference there. Definitely worth giving the advantage to the defense here, though I certainly think running back could go to Georgia Southern. I'd like to give that advantage to them. So when you're looking at a battle of, a good offense versus a good defense compared to the advantage there, who's going to win out in what looks to be a pretty defensive contest in New Orleans, could make sense why you want to take Sam Houston.
And I went ahead and went with the Bearcats. Bowl Mania is always about upsets that make 0 sense at all. And I think even with some of the limitations, they're going to pull the upset here. I think the defense will play a very strong game, and I think they'll just have success on the ground regardless of who's playing. I just don't trust the Eagles' run defense really at all. The under, I think, seems like a good bet, but that could be risky in bowl season. You're going to empty the bag here with trick plays, special teams, fakes, and whatnot. Some careless turnovers might happen. The Bearcats force a lot of those. I don't know if they'll be able to capitalize on them, though, but we'll see what happens in that regard. I think this is a good game, Nick. I think it's very enticing. It's going to be an interesting one to see about what happens with these matchups we discussed. I'll go ahead and pull the upset. You'll take GSU to win by 10. Going down to New Orleans, though, this will be a good one. It was on Thursday at 7 o'clock on ESPN. I'm very interested in this game, though. About 10 confidence points or so on the Bearcats. How many confidence points are you laying on the Eagles?
Yeah, I'm laying quite a few. I have them in towards the middle of the pack here, maybe around that 17 to 20 range. I think this is a good Georgia Southern team. You and I both like this program, a program that under Clay Helton seems to be trending in the right direction after 2 6-7 seasons, now 8-4. Sam Houston, a lot of respect for them as well. Had a bad year 1 3-9 at FBS, and they jumped up to 9-3 with a team that's really not that good on paper. Small budget school, all that stuff. So a lot of credit to them making this bowl game. Certainly really impressive there. I like what GSU's been able to do. I think this is a matchup. I highlighted a couple of those intriguing matchups between a bad pass defense and a bad passing offense. And I think Georgia Southern will just have enough on offense to get the job done at the end of the day and win what should be a low defensive battle here. I think the under is certainly in play. I like the under a lot in this game. I think that makes a ton of sense for me. This is a good game to watch Thursday night, kicking off 7 Eastern. You can watch that maybe watch the first half. before you transition to the NFL on Thursday night. That kicks off around 8:30 Eastern. A good way to kind of warm you up, get some football. Game in New Orleans playing at the Superdome. Should be a solid matchup here. I like the Eagles in this one. Wouldn't be surprised if Sam Houston wins it, but I'm going to take the Eagles with the points. I like what they have on offense here. I just think the Sam Houston offense won't be able to generate enough to keep them in this game. A big defensive affair, though, is certainly in order here.
Yep, a good one between the Chargers and the Broncos on Amazon as we're going down as well. It's going to be it for today's episode. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.